What's up, subscribers, future subscribers? I'm gonna act like this is not my first time, and I want you to act like this is not my first time either. It's not the first time I've said that. But I had some things I wanted to talk about. Like I wanted to rant about something. I felt like this was a good forum to do that. I don't know if people are gonna love what I say necessarily, but because the demographic I am talking to today is UFC fans and MMA fans in general, and really fight fans, but specifically the UFC, because there's a big difference between how UFC fans are and how every other fan is, like boxing fans, whoever. After watching UFC 314, and I am a UFC fan, I'm a big UFC fan, a big boxing fan. I fought since I was like 14, so I don't fight anymore, but I did up until I quit. I was fighting for like 5, 6 years. And at first it was boxing, and then it was MMA, and then it was kickboxing. And I had like I've been in every kind of gym. I've trained in, I don't know, at least like 5 different gyms. And I can tell you for sure there's a big difference between boxing gyms and MMA gyms, but I'll save that for later though. It's not about fighting. Fighting is whatever. It's a crazy, crazy, thing to do. To do that for fun, to do that as a job is crazy. But what's crazier is the way that people who don't fight, and even some people who do fight, but just the way the culture is surrounding it, especially in the UFC. It's crazy because it's really the culture in MMA as a whole, not just the UFC, but in MMA as a whole, is all kind of controlled by one person. And who is that one person? You guessed it. Dana White. And probably a few other people, but mainly Dana White. Probably a little bit of Donald Trump in there too. He's got a lot of you guys in a chokehold. And you guys don't even fucking care about politics. You just suck his dick all day. It's really weird. And you could tell on UFC 314 when he walked in, there's a whole WWE walkout for some politician, which the whole being of a politician, the whole idea of a politician, especially a politician who's a billionaire, it really doesn't mix with the idea of fighting very well. And it's why I always question when people say, well, yeah, of course the fighting world is going to be conservative. But it doesn't really make sense. There's so many aspects of fighting that don't really align with the conservative mindset. Like the main thing being, if you ever fought, you know that the first time you ever spar is kind of crazy. And it's depending on where you go, but typically people are very, very, very open. They're very comforting in a weird way, even though you're getting your face smashed. Pause. Not pause, whatever, fuck you. It's like this really weird kind of moment where you're kind of told to forget about everything about your insecurities, your anxieties, this, that, whatever. You're just kind of supposed to fight and be there in the moment and be present. And it doesn't feel like that at all kind of aligns with the idea of, the right at this moment, the far right at this moment at least, where everything is kind of fake and two-faced, and it's very, very scared. It's as scared as it gets. It's openly anxious and openly insecure. It's the first step forward is always a fearful one. And that's how they draw everybody in. They tell people, well, you're scared. You're right to be scared. And I'm going to make you more scared. So you should believe me. It just doesn't make sense. It's weird. It's all weird. And then the treatment of one man who's never fought, who's never stood up for anybody except for himself in ways that aren't very commendable. He's never been honest clearly. He just is like a whole, he's got so many different faces that he chooses to show. And this is the crazy thing, is that I could be talking about Dana White or Donald Trump right now. You don't know. The treatment of that person and the fact that we put them on such a high pedestal and we treat them like they're gods. They walk into they walk into an arena and they have a whole WWE walkout and everybody's standing up clapping. They got banners. People that a lot of times say they're in the neutral just start, oh, let me shake your hand, sir. Let me shake your hand, sir. You look so good. Did you get your hair dyed or something? Sorry, no, my bad, my bad. Your hair just looks great. Can I touch it? When I was boxing, I would always be at the gym on Saturdays as soon as the gym opened. Like I'd even help open the gym. And that was always the time where new people would come in. All the other people who were, fighters, they wouldn't get there until, I think it opened usually at 10, maybe 9. Most fighters would get there at like 12-ish. But then all the new people who are trying to go to the gym for the first time, they would always want to be there for whatever reason on a Saturday, which makes sense, but as soon as it opens. I'd be there alone with my coaches, and then in come would be all these new people who were trying it for the first time. Sometimes it was kids, sometimes it was grown adults, sometimes it was gigantic human beings, sometimes it was tiny human beings. It didn't really matter, because the first day when they would get there, the first thing that my coaches ever had them do would be to spar me. If you really do want to fight, truthfully, the best way to know and the best way to get started is just by fighting. Not hitting the mitts, not hitting the bag, not, doing a little shadow boxing. The main thing that matters when you're first starting is getting in the ring and just seeing how you feel. And obviously I would go slow, but in that moment, it always feels like such a unique experience where you're kind of like you and this specific person. Because there are other times where there are people who know how to fight, you'll spar them, and it kind of just feels like they're trying to show off. Like they're, you guys could be sparring at like 50%. You see the videos all the time. And then they just go crazy and they go heavy. And this woman, though, is somebody who's really just trying to survive and understand what's going on. And they're probably really scared, but they're trying. And they're letting that fear go, and they're just going for it. And you're right there with them, and you're kind of the one helping them through it and running them through everything. That whole experience for anybody is very symbolic in my mind of just life as a whole. And it's something that, if I keep with this analogy, the insane toxic MMA fan base, if that whole analogy was ran through their thought process, it would instead be they get in, they spar for the first time, and they beat that person's ass, and they show how tough they are, and they are naturally just amazing, and everybody is clapping and patting them on the back. But the truth is that you're not like that. And the idea, this whole crazy ego that everybody has surrounding fighting, is like at this crazy, crazy level in MMA and the UFC. And when you try to keep that up and try to like keep that idea up here, this idea, this ego, you try to keep it as alive as much as possible. That's what creates the crazy toxicness. It's not from the ego. It's from everything you're doing to keep that ego alive. I think people are so afraid of themselves that they just can't. They can't accept the idea that they can lose, or the idea that they're not the toughest person in the world, because that's somehow worse than them just being a good person or a bad person. Like, that's the only two things that matter. Good person, bad person. How you treat other people. Is it good? Do you make people smile? Or do you make people cry? That's what really matters. But instead, the insane toxic mindset is how tough you are. And can you knock this person out? Can you do this to this person? Can you beat this person? Can you fight? And it just cultivates this insane, crazy, crazy, insane, ego, maniac-filled mindset that I see more alive in the UFC culture, the MMA culture, than any other fighting style. A really good example for how alive this is the fight on Saturday, the Gene Silva versus Bryce Mitchell fight. You got one person who says he's righteous, calling another person who is just a guy trying to fight, who's very expressive of himself. He's saying that guy is filled with a legion of demons. Gene Silva has done nothing at all except bark, and for some reason, he's the devil. And with the added context that Gene Silva barks because he got a dog when he was a little kid from his older brother. His older brother ended up dying, and so he had a crazy attachment to this dog, and he felt connected to this dog, and so he kind of mimicked it. And it was like a little stimming kind of thing. The fact that now people see him do that, and they see him just having fun, basically. They see him crying, openly crying in front of people. They see all that stuff that is simply him being expressive, and him also all at the same time being a pretty good person, even being oddly compassionate for Bryce Mitchell. And then they see Mr. Mitchell, who is saying he wants to go on a fishing trip with Hitler. I'm convinced that every single time he gets hit, all of his everything inside of here just gets like 10% worse. And honestly, he's probably one knockout or one submission away from just believing the earth is a donut instead of it being flat. But you got this guy, Bryce Mitchell, who all he does is say he's righteous. He quotes everything that's in the Bible. He says that Jesus is on his side. He says all this stuff. But there's no actual weight to it because he's not truly being a good person. He's only being a dick. That's all he's doing. And I get that in the past, way back when he gave money to charity and all this stuff, he gave his bonus away to charity. That's all great. I'm glad he did that. I'm happy he did that. But it doesn't change the fact that now he's a dick. That doesn't save you from that, you know? Like Mr. Beast can do all he's ever done, and then he can call somebody the N-word with a hard R and then slap a child across the face. Don't mean he's not a dick. But it's just crazy, the support. I was so surprised seeing the UFC fan base being the biggest fans of Bryce Mitchell and somehow hating on Gene Silva. I thought of all people, Gene Silva would be the person that UFC fans would kind of have this change of mind on Bryce Mitchell for. But it's just a good example because you got one guy who says he's so righteous, and then another guy who's just expressive of himself. And all that's chosen is the guy who says he's righteous. The fan base chooses the guy who says he's righteous. And they hate, and legitimately hate, passionately hate, just the guy who's expressive of himself. And they just say he's autistic, which he might be. I don't know. But you guys, with all you do, probably are too. And so what's wrong with that? I don't know. But I don't know where you guys find these lines in your head. It just all feels very confusing because you gotta be a little bit self-aware. Like you have to be able to find the idea in your stomach at least. You know, like that weird feeling down there that everything you're saying and everything you're following and all these people you're following, it's a little weird. The support for people who don't support if they were in a room with you, if you guys were on an island together and you were crying and you were beside yourself, they walk away. But fighters who are fine people who are just fine people, get horrible treatment from the UFC fan base simply because they're open of themselves, I guess. I don't know. Whatever anybody from the culture starts saying, if they add some little buzzwords to it, if they add fear towards that person, like Gene Silva Bryce Mitchell said got a legion of demons behind him. So now everybody's like, oh shit, I can't support him. He's Satan's child. Meanwhile, there's unwavering support for the guy or a guy who beats his wife, or a guy who gets in a car, gets drunk, and crashes into a pregnant woman. There's unwavering support for a guy who doesn't let black people live in his apartment buildings, or didn't let black people live in his apartment buildings. Or a guy who says he's going to see his opponent's father in hell. And we get told by people like Dana White that he's open for everybody and anybody can say whatever they want, that he's not controlling anything. A fighter of his supports BLM and wants to talk openly about that, and he tells them to shut up. Or a fighter has a Palestine flag because they're from Palestine, and they take it off. There's just all so much where it's like, clearly you don't have a clear mind to think about stuff. Like the coach, the fans don't have an actual genuine mind for themselves. It's all filtered through what the culture thinks. All you have to do is just be real with yourself and care enough. You don't have to care about people and go and give money to them or do this or that for them. Just care about people enough to where you can see openly who you think is a good person, who's a bad person, where you're not covered with all this hate in yourself to judge people for just being themselves. I know this is a rant about the UFC, but I feel like it's kind of a good rant for pretty much everything. Much of what's going on in this country, in this world right now, all kind of has some kind of basis in what I'm talking about. Look at people for how they are, what they do. Are they a good person? Are they a bad person? Has nothing to do with how they express themselves. Has nothing to do with their personality or how they look. It's simply how they treat people. But truthfully, the reason why people can't do that, it has nothing to do with black or white or gay or straight. They don't care about any of that. They just got whatever kind of issues going on up here. My advice to anybody who feels like they might be a hateful person, or they might be kind of doing a lot of the stuff that I'm referencing, if you can see that even like a teeny bit within yourselves, you don't have to tell yourself, I'm gonna stop being racist. Because racism, all the horrible things you probably say or do, the problem is all within yourself. Like, you need to first cut the roots out. You can't just try to cut the end of it off. Or like that fucking dragon analogy, whatever it is, I don't know. I don't remember it. The little three-headed thing, you can't cut the head off or else it'll just grow back. You get it. You gotta, if you want to stop being a racist, maybe you have to look at it like there's something deeper going on within yourself. Go to a damn library. It's free. You can go to the library and just read self-help books in there and then leave. You don't gotta pay anything. And just see what that creates in your head. Obviously, most people who are racist or homophobic or just judgmental people, they don't really care. And they don't even realize it, and they might not. The chances are slim. But I think we make it so much worse for people who are just young and confused and are just kind of in a world where people are telling them what to do, and they, for whatever reason, just can't think for themselves. We make it a lot harder when the culture is telling them how to think about people, and the culture is hateful. Because as much as maybe some people can't change, the whole culture and everything is manufactured. It can be however we want it. I think the problem that the mindset of one is then the mindset of many. I don't know. I'm just kind of ranting. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the UFC is still fun to watch. I love the UFC. I love fighting. I don't fight anymore, but I do love fighting. But I don't know. Sometimes you guys just got to chill out. Pay attention to yourself. Be a good person. If your friends or something is being an asshole, tell them they're being an asshole and move on. I'm still watched. I got my picks for Bilal versus JDM. I think Bilal will probably win by decision, as usual. And I hope he's got that Palestine flag.